An entitled old man blocks traffic and refuses to move up his car so that I can properly get out and go to my job. But after waiting and honking our horn for several minutes, things escalate to the point where this old man gets out of his car and backhands me in the face, supposedly because I don't respect elderly people. Here's what happened. So this happened to my partner and I in the spring of last year, and the security guards at my place of work still giggle about it to this day. So I'm a cleaner for a mall, and there is nowhere to safely park for me to get out when he is dropping me off to work in the afternoons, except for this one set of doors, which is super convenient for me because it's the closest entrance to the security office where I have to sign out my keys, which also leads to the area that I work in. But it also happens to be the sketchiest entrance for the whole building. The area to park is just a little pull-in loading zone that's about 6 car lengths long. Most of the time it's full of cars, so my partner gets over as close as he can and throws his four-ways on so I can quickly get out and go inside. Well, this day in particular, a transport truck that I assume was making a delivery to one of the restaurants inside decided he was going to park there instead of going to the loading dock in the underground parking. As we were driving up to pull in ahead of the transport, the car in front of us pulls in. But instead of pulling up all the way, they parked right in the middle, making a space large enough for 3 small cars taken up by his Honda Civic. So at first, my partner just sighs and stops behind the transport to let me out. But the traffic was very heavy that day, so he had to pull over so close to the running transport that I could barely open my car and was instantly being blasted with the hot air from the engine. So my partner tells me to stop and beeps his horn at the Honda. The old man in the driver's seat whips his head around, gives us an evil death glare, all before turning back and not moving an inch. So he beeps again, this time gesturing with his hand out the window for him to pull up just a little bit. We have a 2-door Mini Cooper S, so all he had to do was roll up his idling car 3 or 4 feet and we could easily squeeze in. But the guy literally doesn't want to move, so we decide to wait. But no one is getting in or out of the car. He is literally just sitting there. So my partner beeps again, gesturing with his hand, indicating that he should move up. If the space was big enough, we would have just pulled up in front of him, but it was just a tad too small of a space, and the traffic is whizzing by so fast and heavy that it would be a feat to even pull back on the road at this point. But this time, both the driver and his passenger, whom I'm assuming is his wife, just turn back and give a scrunched up stink eye, but still don't move. I told my partner to just give up and started attempting to squeeze out of the car when he gets fed up with this entitled jerk and holds down the horn as hard and as long as he possibly can. And I'm talking like a good 1.5 minutes at least. He then opens up his windows fully and starts yelling at this guy. He says, "Move your car so that my wife can safely get out and go to work." Finally, we see movement, but it's not the car moving up. It's the old man getting out of his car, screaming at us as he's stomping over. My partner at this point was not backing down. He told the old man that he needs to move his car up a bit because I can't get out against a running transport. But the old man doesn't seem to care or even listen. He instead starts screaming through the window about how my partner is a jerk and that he is waiting to pick up a disabled person, so he is not able to move his car, while also saying that my partner has no respect. The argument goes back and forth without going anywhere. So out of frustration, my partner throws his smoke out the window as he's about to squeal away, but the old man is still hovering his face back and forward in front of the window. So when my partner flicked it, he tried to throw it at an angle on the front of the car, but it ended up hitting the inside rim of the door and bounced towards the old man. This caused him to full out rage and even try to punch my partner in the face, but he clipped his hand on the half-open window instead. He continued to swing, but this gave me that split second to hit the power windows button to roll up. So now he's just standing there repeatedly punching the driver's side window, screaming something about how we have no respect for the old. Now, because he's not moving, my partner couldn't pull out on the road either, so we're just sitting there watching him punch and scream at our car. Finally, a guy in his 40s with a walker comes strolling out, but get this, the little ramp for the curb that he had to use to get his walker down was exactly where this jerk's car would have been sitting if he had just pulled up a little bit, which made the disabled guy actually have a harder time to go completely around to get back to the passenger door. Now, at this point, I'm completely late for work, so I managed to slip out of my door, and as I'm walking around the transport to get onto the sidewalk, this old jerk comes running around his car with a folded up walker, screaming at me about how I have no respect for the old and disabled, and then he does something I honestly never expected. He backhand slaps me right across the face. My partner is halfway sticking out into traffic when this happens, trying to merge in, but stops when he sees this. Behind me are 2 security guards walking up to investigate what all of the noise is about, having them along with the 20 other bystanders now gawking at the commotion. Without a blink of the eye, I rip the walker out of his hand and I throw it into oncoming traffic. As he rushes over to the road to attempt to chase it, I ran up behind him and was about to give him one big push when 4 familiar familiar arms grabbed me in a bear hug and pulled me back. It was the security guards, stopping me from making one of the biggest mistakes of my life. But the real kicker is when the security guard was writing up his no trespassing papers, banning him, his wife, and the disabled guy he was picking up from the property for life, was the shocked fish out of water face he had when the other guy picked up and passed me my hearing aid that went flying out of my ear when he struck me in the face. I've been legally deaf for the past 10 years from a car accident where a transport spun out on black ice and smashed into my ex's car. I know there's no way he could have known that. I just found it ironic that he was so outraged about us not respecting the fact that he felt he was entitled to take up half the loading zone just to pick up a guy with a walker, all while he was forcing a deaf girl to wedge herself between a running transport and oncoming traffic just so she could get to work. Now, I do regret the way I acted, but luckily I had coworkers there to stop me right in time. Yeah, this is a crazy story because I gotta be honest, both parties do not look good in this instance. For starters, the old man in this story really could have just rolled up like, 5 feet so you can properly get out of your car? Like, it really would not have been that difficult to do that, and that guy was completely in the wrong. Also, his reaction to punching and screaming at your car, as well as backhanding you in the face, is honestly insane to me. I'm kind of surprised that the police didn't get involved, but it kind of makes sense because your partner did throw a cigarette in his face, and I know it wasn't on purpose, but from the old man's perspective, it probably definitely was, so that's definitely not a good look either. But also, I can't imagine that's the only place your partner can drop you off just so you can get out of your car and go to work. I know anytime I've been to the mall, there's always a massive parking lot close by you easily could have gone to. I don't know, it kind of seems like there was a massive lack of planning, and this all could have been avoided if you just took other steps. But honestly, in my opinion, the fact that this guy physically attacked you is completely uncalled for. That was so far out of line, and in my opinion, that makes him the bigger jerk than either you or your partner. But what do you think? Leave a comment down below. What would you do in this situation? Let us know down below. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boss introduces a new time tracking tool to supposedly avoid time manipulation on our part. So me and my coworkers band together and decide to work the system, causing this new time tracking tool to backfire in my boss's face in a way that was deeply rewarding. Here's what happened. So I work in a small startup company of around 12 people. It's a very good atmosphere in the office, and everyone pulls their weight and is super motivated. However, our boss likes to micromanage us, even though he has no expertise in our fields. And this is especially relevant for us in marketing and design. We really suffer from this a lot, since he will make changes to our strategies and our posts and our website, sometimes all without telling us, and then gets upset at us when the customer feedback is bad and we aren't reaching our predicted goals. So recently, he told us that the reason he thinks we aren't seeing enough results is all because we are manipulating our hours and not actually putting the work in that we should. Until then, we each wrote down our hours manually in an Excel spreadsheet, but with a new time tracking tool, he would see how long we were working down to the minute. He also could only log in on our PCs and previously approved household devices, but not mobile because if you are not at your desk, it does not work. After our initial shock passed and our boss left for the day, our manager called for a meeting and we came up with a plan. We would do as he says in the most just following the rules kind of way. For starters, we would not engage in work-related conversations with him unless we are sitting at our desks and we're clocked in. Any questions by him which are asked when we are off the clock will only be answered once we clock in again the following day. Every phone call, text message, or otherwise work-related things outside of the office would only be answered once there was an option for us to clock in either the next day in office or for some of us on our home office device. Since we no longer have the option to shift time manually, all work minutes and hours would be clocked exactly when they took place. And as a side note to that, in my country, weekends pay better. Sundays have to be paid double, and working after 8 p.m. warrants additional financial benefits by law. Previously, if we needed to post something really quick or we had a question, we would just add the weekend hours or late time to the upcoming Monday. Basically, we were working out of goodwill, but that was very swiftly ending today. We would also stop any independent activity like posting on social media or writing an email and would send him everything to approve before following through. Well, after about a week, our boss was so fed up with this, he gave us the option to clock in from our mobile devices so he could get more immediate response to his questions. However, this of course led to us clocking in way more frequently. Well, fast forward to 2024, and I'm happy to report that we've abolished the system again and regained most of our independence. And even though our boss is still upset about how we exploited the system, it brought the team closer together and it taught him a valuable lesson. Yeah, that boss is being super obnoxious. Like, the only reason he wanted that time clock system or whatever he was trying to do was so he could find yet another excuse for why he can micromanage micromanage your job. Because if he seriously doesn't see that he's the problem with you not meeting your deadlines, then I just don't know what will make him realize that in the long run. Like, this guy's trying to be like, okay, change this design today. And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? I can't just do that overnight. I mean, sure, I could, but it's not going to be the high quality that you would expect from an office. But I just love how everybody in that department basically banded together and basically said, oh, okay, you want to change things on us? Well, congratulations, we're going to work this system and make your life a living nightmare. So good for all of these people for doing that and making him reverse everything that he started. Because his new system was just really dumb, and there was no reason for him to try and micromanage you and your coworkers in the slightest. My entitled mother caused a massive fight over her wanting to go out for lunch. And right about now, I'm kind of thinking that it's my fault, but I'm seriously not sure. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. 2 days ago, we were all at home, and then my mom came back from her doctor's appointment and randomly said that she wanted to go out for lunch. The thing is, we already had stuff cooking, and it was almost done, and it would have been a waste to not eat it, except none of us wanted to say anything about it in case she had a big fuss over it. So she asked us whether we want to go out for lunch, and me and my siblings were like, sure, I mean, if you want. And we did this mostly because we didn't want to make her think we didn't want to spend time with her. And then she asked us where we want to go, only we didn't really have a preference since we don't go out often, and we don't mind what we eat, so we said, we can go wherever you want. But then me and my dad pointed out that we have chicken wings in the air fryer already cooking, and that it would be a waste if we didn't eat them. And it's also important to note that she already knew that we were cooking lunch by the time she got back. She kept making suggestions about where we could go, and then kept asking us where we wanted to eat, to which we replied we're fine with anything, but she still didn't choose a place. I told my dad really quietly that I think she really wants to go out, but is being indirect about it. So why don't we choose somewhere random and eat there and eat the stuff we're cooking for dinner? But she must have thought I was making a rude comment or something like that, because she demanded to know exactly what I just said. I said to her, oh, I just thought you really wanted to go, but didn't want to say in case we didn't want to, and suggested that we just choose somewhere and go. Well, when I said that, she got mad and started yelling at me for whispering behind her back, which I will admit is probably kind of what I was doing, only it wasn't intended as a snide remark, but unfortunately she did end up taking it as such. Then she got really mad and started saying stuff like, oh, this family is so ungrateful because the kids never appreciate anything we do for them. If you don't appreciate us trying to do something nice for you, then you're a big jerk. Only she didn't call us a jerk and instead said a really bad swear word. And this is definitely not the first time she's used swear words on us either. My brother was in his room when he heard the swear words screamed out, and he came outside and asked her what she said. Then my mom said, I just said if you don't appreciate what we're doing for you, then that's fine. And he said, no, not that part, the other part. And she still wouldn't tell him and started telling him off for pressing her when she didn't want to talk about it. Later, when I thought she wasn't in earshot, I pulled my brother over and told him what she said, because I knew he wouldn't be satisfied until he knew. It's also important to note that I didn't realize she could hear me, and this was probably a stupid thing to do, but I was already annoyed at the time and didn't think it mattered at that point, especially not when everyone was already annoyed too. After that, my mom started going on and on about us not being grateful and being rude and stuff, and started asking my dad why he wasn't defending her. Then the whole thing escalated into a massive argument between them, and in the end, my dad went out to go somewhere quiet while my mom and brother had a conversation about the whole thing of her basically saying a swear word at all of us. Once my dad came back, everything was okay for a little bit, but then my mom wouldn't talk to me for some reason. At that point, I was still upset at her, so I didn't really care and I didn't think anything of it. Now, I think this part was my fault, but then yesterday, my dad called me to the kitchen and told me that he wanted me to apologize to my mom, and still being annoyed, I just mumbled that I was sorry, even though I didn't intend on her hearing me tell my brother what the swear word was, and didn't intend to make any snide remarks either. Then she wanted me to come over and talk about it, and I just went over, but I think she could tell that I didn't want to talk about it and started lecturing me on having a bad attitude and how I probably wasn't even sorry in the first place. Now, the truth is, I was kind of sorry, but I didn't want to let her know in case she thought it meant that none of it was her fault in the first place. She then started calling me wicked and said stuff like, how could you have such evil in your heart? I couldn't even imagine doing that to my own parents. Now, of course, I didn't want to apologize after that, since she was making a bigger deal out of the situation than necessary. My dad then came to my room to talk to me for a few minutes, and I was already a mess by then. And at that point, I was so angry that I told him I wasn't going to apologize if she was going to act like that. I think apart from the attempt at an apology, I said like 3 words to my mother the whole day. I still haven't said anything, and I'm not going to, because then what will likely happen is that she will think she got away with causing a fight. Now, as a side note, I'm a teenager, and I haven't actually heard her apologize to anyone a single time. This morning, my dad told me that I had to be at least starting to talk talk to her by the 9th because that's when we're going on holiday. He said that I had to be a good daughter and be nice to her since she's my mother, all without giving any other reasons. Personally, I do not think that this is a good reason to let her get away with anything because being ejected from somebody's loins does not qualify them for unconditional love. He then said he's gonna make me stay in the same room as her on holiday if I didn't at least say something to her. And I'm honestly just so sick of my entitled mother. Yeah, your mom sounds like a piece of work. She literally started arguments with you and the rest of the family for like no reason. Like you were telling the truth, you were not making some snide remark. But instead, she's the one that took this to heights that were completely inappropriate. Like seriously, there's no reason to start swearing at people, lady. Like calm down. And also, why in the world would she suggest somewhere for all of you to eat without acknowledging the obvious clues that yeah, you guys are already cooking something? Like that seems really controlling and weird in my opinion, and honestly super annoying. So I'm really sorry you had to deal with that because seriously, you did not do anything wrong. And for your mom and your dad to try and make you apologize like that, in my opinion, was completely out of line. Am I the jerk for calling my neighbor a Karen when she threatened me with small claims court after I threw away their garbage that was scattered all over my backyard? Here's what happened. Okay, so I live with my wife and our 2 sons. We are homeowners and we have had trouble with our next door neighbors. They are a young nuclear family with 2 parents in their 30s with a little baby. We are not the type of neighbors to spy into yards or monitor what everyone is doing, so we hadn't really noticed that their backyard is a pigsty, at least not until our fence panels had been broken. These neighbors had been piling trash and leaning it up against our fence, and eventually the sheer weight of it had just broken it, causing it all to spill onto our yard. There were old pieces of wood and metal, garbage bags, pieces of furniture, and just general clutter. Well, I confronted the neighbors and informed them of what happened. I asked politely that they clear up the garbage and contribute some money towards a new fence. The husband said that he would sort it out, but after 2 weeks of no change, I knocked on their door again. The wife gave some excuse about how the baby has been crazy, but that they would get rid of the garbage as soon as possible. Well, fast forward another 3 weeks and still nothing has changed. I knocked on their door at 2 different times, left messages on their Ring doorbell, and messaged them both on Facebook, and it has been nothing but radio silence. They've also not given us any money for the fence, but to be honest, I don't even care. After no response for another week, I took matters into my own hands. I loaded up their garbage into my car and I took it to the dump. Well, they're now angry and said that we have no right to get rid of their stuff and that it's still their property. When the wife turned up at our door, we got into a small argument as she threatened me with small claims court, saying that we owe her and her husband money. Well, I called her a Karen and told her that if that stuff was so important, she should have left it littered around my yard, which is a place where my kids play, all for over a month. She says that they would have gotten rid of it if they were given a chance, and that the nearest dump is over an hour's drive away, and they don't have all the time in the world. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You are definitely not the jerk, because you know what? That lady is 100% a Karen. So is her husband. I mean, this is the classic Karen and Kevin situation, where they had ample time to fix this problem, but instead they ghosted you and refused to do anything about it. For starters, I would love to see these people go to small claims court, because not only have they littered on your property, but they also broke your fence. And it's not going to be hard to see that, yeah, you did not cause this. Also, my God, how much trash was on that fence? Like, even with a fence that is like kind of okay, it would have to take a lot of garbage, we're talking garbage here, to make that thing topple over and cave in towards your side. And that is seriously insane to me. Like, that is so unacceptable. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think these people are out of their minds if they think that you're the problem here, because the way they acted towards you is honestly completely unacceptable. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.